social issues, education, religion, government, or national security. Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And welcome to the broadcast on this Friday night, February 6, 2025. No, 2026, Brannon. Woo, still trying to get used to that. How many of you are still writing 2025 on your checks? It takes a little while to break that habit, but it is February 6, 2026. We're going to be joined tonight by Colonel Rob Maness. We have a story that really should have been making bigger news today, but it's been buried among other things. And that is the United States government has brought one of the masterminds of the Benghazi 2012 terrorist attack to the United States, touching down today at Joint Base Andrews at 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll show you the video, bring you a comment by Pam Bondi. And then we're going to have on with us Selwyn Duke. I want to talk a little bit more about this one right here. Story on illegal Chinese biolabs. It's getting scarier. What does all that mean? And Dems, why are they so afraid of voter IDs? I think we know. We'll talk about that and more. Usama Dakdok, born and raised in Egypt, expert on Islam, speaks and writes fluent Arabic, translated the Quran into perfect English, so you can see that it's not all it's cracked up to be. It's been whitewashed by most translations, but not his. He's going to join us tonight because the new mayor of New York City, Mamdani, had a speech today, said some things about the importance of following Islam and immigration and Mohammed. We're going to play those for you and have Usama Dakdok, one of the world's renowned experts on Islam, speak to that. Then we're going to play a little video by Todd Blanche, Deputy Attorney General, stating today, quote, "We're not going to prosecute the predators in the Epstein files and we're not going to release their names to the public," end quote. What? Oh, so many errors that should not be happening with this administration. Among all the wonderful and great things they're doing, so many errors. So many people that probably should not be, well, I'll take that back. Not probably. People who should not be in this administration, who seem to be absolutely sabotaging it. We'll get to that tonight, that's for sure. All right, tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, True Social. Tell your family and friends we are on with a great lineup tonight. Oh, I know. And then Tina. Tina was born and spent some time living in Iraq. I want to talk to her about a modern day Daniel to one degree, a general by the name of George Sada, who, as a general of the Air Force, over the Air Force for Saddam Hussein, protected the life of several American POWs, among other POWs of other countries. I want to talk about that, tell you that story. I mentioned it in my Bible study a few weeks ago on the book of Daniel, because that's where Daniel took place, right there in what is today modern day Iraq. I want to talk a little bit about that story and then have Tina talk about it, and then talk also about the opportunities in America. A lot of young people think there's just not a lot of hope. You know, they're concerned and they're bothered by the lack of the American dream. Well, I understand there are challenges. There are for every generation. But let me ask you this. Are there still great opportunities for young people in America today? Let's ask Tina Blanco, who came here from Iraq to build multiple businesses. I want to ask her about what she thinks about the opportunities that are available today for America's young people. Let's talk to her about that. That'll be interesting. And then I think we have some tours that we're going to play for you. More tours by our personal reporter and tour guide in Israel, Aaron Lavarco. Going to bring you that as well. All right. Hey, don't forget, we're brought to you by you. You know it. We need you using these products. They're great products on top of that. WorldviewWater.net. Get the Worldview Water filter and filter out all these horrific things, pesticides, arsenic, all kinds of garbage. WorldviewWater.net, WorldviewWater.net. The Gatatana, take it every day. One little scoop, the equivalent of 90 billion plant cells. The equivalent of 90 billion plant cells. And of course, I also give half a scoop to Dolly, the phytoplankton for Fido, the phytoplankton for pets. Okay, I take this every day. Dolly takes it every day. Melissa takes it every day. There are several clinical trials on this. Don't forget the man that came up with this got a terminal diagnosis. He started eating the phytoplankton he was raising for his crayfish and whatnot. And his daughter, who's on video with him, saying, "What are you doing? This isn't made for human consumption. I don't know about that. Should you be doing this?" He's like, "What do I got to lose?" Long story short, his terminal cancer, well, I guess it beat it because he lived another 10 years. Retired to Hawaii. Not making claims. I'm just telling you his personal story written up in the papers up in Canada. And out of that came the company Global Plankton Alliance, Gatatana. Melissa Howse, GPA.com. I drink it each and every day, along with my Bella Grace, which I'm still waiting on my next shipment because we've been without any services, Amazon or U.S. Postal Service or any of that for 2 weeks yet. So I need to get it fast because all my symptoms are coming back that I had been able to suppress since getting on Bella Grace since December of 2023. So let's pray that comes in this week. But thankfully, I have my Numi and I have my Gatatana. So check that out, MellissaHouseBG.com. Yes, the Gatatana, folks, that's loaded with glutathione, not Gatatana, the Numi. The Numi is loaded with glutathione to detox your cells. 165,000 studies on glutathione. Switch it around for your mouth for 3 minutes, swallow it or spit it out, but it's in your bloodstream within 90 seconds, according to the studies. And some studies show it may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's, all right? And then, of course, all the other great products there, the Worldview Healthcare to get your antibiotics and your medical emergency kits on hand. These are all very important things. You'll find them at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Let's get started. Well, the good news tonight is one of the reported masterminds behind the 2012 Benghazi attack has been arrested and brought to the United States of America at 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time this morning. We'll show you some video footage, but first, here is Attorney General Pam Bondi making the announcement, and we'll get a response from Colonel Rob Maness.
I'm proud to announce that the FBI has arrested one of the key participants behind the Benghazi attack. Zubair al-Bakosh landed at Andrews Air Force Base at 3 a.m. this morning. He is in our custody. He was greeted by Director Patel and U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro. Hillary Clinton famously once said about Benghazi, "What difference at this point does it make?" Well, it makes a difference to Donald Trump. It makes a difference to those families. And 14 years later, it makes a difference to law enforcement who made the difference in this case. Thank you, President Trump, for supporting all of our agencies around the country and around the world. Al-Bakosh will now face American justice on American soil. We will prosecute this alleged terrorist to the fullest extent of the law. He'll face charges related to murder, terrorism, arson, among others. Let this case serve as a reminder. If you commit a crime against the American people anywhere in this world, President Trump's Justice Department will find you.
All right. Joining me now is Colonel Rob Maness. Many of you probably have seen some of the movies that have depicted this horrific event. Colonel, welcome to the broadcast. Thank you for joining us by phone with this breaking story that really has gotten buried today. There's so much other news going on. This story was not the headline you think it would be. It took us a little bit of time throughout the day to finally find this story late in the afternoon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Brandon. You know, as one of the Americans that has spent decades fighting Islamist terrorists, I would just like to say it's about darn time. You know, we lost an American ambassador and his closest security team, among many others, to this attack. And it took 14 years to capture the mastermind behind it, and we haven't captured anybody else. That, quite frankly, is ridiculous, and we are very grateful to President Trump and his team. But it doesn't and shouldn't be about having President Trump in the administration. Every American administration should have been going after these guys, and quite frankly, The Obama administration and the Biden administration did not. And that is unacceptable. I am so grateful that we finally have one of them, if not probably the most important one, in captivity, and we can hold him accountable.
Sarah Carter has put out a little baseball card-like graphic on him. He was involved in this attack, we're told, September 11, 2012. Dates, as you know, are very important to the Islamists. And prior to the revolution, not reported to have been involved in terrorism and was long affiliated with the Scouts. And she has an image of him literally wearing what looks like to be a Scout uniform. In 2011, during the revolution, fought with Free Libya Martyrs Brigade, led by a Wassam bin Humaid. On July 28, 2011, he participated in the assassination of a major general. In early 2012, he joined AASB. And then on September 11, 2012, participated in the U.S. consulate attacks. In 2014, when the Libyan National Army started counterterrorism operations in Benghazi, he fled to Tripoli with his family. Status as of February 2026, detained in the U.S., previously was located with his family in Tripoli, had a stroke in 2015, and has had several number of medical issues. But now he is on U.S. soil. I think we even have some video footage of that. But you want to respond to the little baseball card graphic on him?
Very grateful for Sarah and the work that she's done. She was a part of the team that worked the Benghazi issue at the time. It has been calling for justice and accountability for the perpetrators of that attack for all of these years, and has worked incessantly to get that done, as all of us have. But the members of that team that were able to get out of the country and survive, we should all be very grateful to and be praying for them and praying for the families of those that we lost, and gratitude for this success, albeit very, very late, and we still need to round the rest of them up.
Here's some video footage of him being brought off the airplane this morning, 3 a.m. D.C. time at, looks like Joint Base Andrews, February 6, 2026. They looks like they put him on a stretcher and then took him from there. He'd had a stroke, is what I read a while ago, so that was probably the difficulty getting down on the stairs. But so I guess he'll go on trial now, and this will probably take a gazillion years. He'll probably die before he gets to trial and found guilty.
Yeah, of course, the leftist lawyer community, which is the majority of the lawyers in the United States, unfortunately, will come to this murderer's defense, even though he killed an American ambassador. You can't say it enough. He killed an American ambassador without provocation, and his closest security team, and many others that were former Navy SEALs, Green Berets, CIA operatives that were trying to defend American territory and American people during the melee that was occurring at the time in Benghazi. And he deserves no quarter whatsoever, but unfortunately the lawyer crowd that thinks that all enemies of America should be protected as much as possible are going to try to do that.
The ambassador, Chris Stevens, he was in that building that night, and I guess they set it on fire. We've all seen the video footage. Yeah. They started stripping him of his clothes and assaulting him. The guy died in a pretty horrific way. I mean, I guess a lot of Americans by now have probably forgotten this story, if ever they knew much about it.
Yeah, and the media has probably buried it today. The mainstream media has buried it today, so I'm grateful that you're covering it, Brannon, because the mainstream media is part of this this cabal, or whatever you want to call it, that tries to control and propagandize the American people and people around the world that believe in freedom. so that they are never embarrassed, because this is an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment for the United States of America. It's an embarrassment for our allies that also let it happen. And it's an embarrassment for every past president that let it go and didn't try to do something about it. And now we have people that have true leadership ability and the courage and the political will to take the right actions. And I'm just glad that we got it done.
Yeah, well, good for them. I mean, we got to give credit where credit's due. So great for Pam Bondi, great for Judge Jean Pirro and FBI Director Kash Patel. Good job, guys. But I want to go real quick to another one. Got new video and audio from the Deputy Attorney General today, Tom Blanche. Listen to what Todd has said here. Listen to this.
Thank you. You said this is the end of the Epstein, of your review of the Epstein files. So just to clarify, is the public going to learn the identities of the men who abused the girls with the information that you're releasing? And if not, why not? And then I have a quick follow-up.
I mean, you just baked in an assumption into your question that I have never said and I don't know to be true. Is the public going to learn about men that abuse these girls? Like, what does that mean? I mean, I don't understand what that means.
Well, I mean, they're the men who abused the young women through Epstein's.
Look, we said in July, and it remains as true today as it was in July. If we had information, we meaning the Department of Justice, about men who abused women, we would prosecute them, right? We talked about the work that we're doing. That's why I said that. I said this earlier. There's this built-in assumption that somehow there's this hidden tranche of information of men that we know about that we're covering up or that we're choosing not to prosecute. That is not the case. I don't know whether there are men out there that abuse these women.
Okay, what do you make of this? Because some of the pictures this week, and again, I guess we don't know their age. But if anyone's trafficked, even if they're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, trafficking is illegal. But some of these gals, even though their faces are covered, look awfully young. I mean, I'm sure you can't help but see it if you're on X scrolling through your news feed. Weren't we told originally there are videos of all kinds of horrific things? Wasn't that what we were originally told, that there were videos?
Look, Brandon, Epstein and his girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, were both charged with trafficking. Epstein got a sweetheart deal from a Republican prosecutor, I might add, by the way. And I don't know the reasons why he got a sweetheart deal, but the girls that were abused, that were minors in this case, have all had, not all of them, but they've all, many of them have had settlements and lawsuits. And so the evidence is clear that these minor women were sex trafficked. And it wasn't just to Jeffrey Epstein, because the evidence shows many pictures of men, very powerful men, that are with these women, sometimes on the island, sometimes at other locations of Epstein's houses. So, unfortunately, we have a group of individuals with power inside the United States government's Department of Justice that is afraid to prosecute or at least even investigate the men that are associated with these files and these activities, because as I think Mike Johnson might have said about a separate issue, that this would bring the entire structure down. Well, the American people are not going to rest until these men get held accountable, Brannon. These men cannot be allowed to not be held accountable because they are among the most powerful people, among the most powerful families or corporate executives in the world today. And if we let this go, if the people of the world and the people of the United States let this go, what does that say to the children and the teenagers that follow on about the justice system in this country? Here's what it says to them. It says, if you are powerful and wealthy or high in the government, then you get a pass, even with the most dastardly crime that can be committed on a child, which is sexual abuse and sex trafficking. Absolutely. That's what it says. And And the individual, Mr. Blanche, that just made that statement should be fired tonight.
Yeah.
He should be fired tonight and replaced with somebody that's willing to take the evidence, do the investigations, and let the facts, the evidence lead to where it needs to lead. Because there is plenty of known evidence to indict people by name in this information that is out there. If there wasn't, Maxwell would never have been prosecuted, and Epstein would never have been prosecuted. So don't pee on my shoe and tell me it's raining, as my dad used to say, because we're not going to stop until this is resolved. And I get it that it's a political football for the President of the United States, but as I've said all along, the best thing for the President Trump to do is to tell his Justice Department not just to release all the information, but do the investigations and start indicting people so that they can go to trial and let a jury decide whether they're guilty or not. That's our system. If we don't use our system for these people, then the system is not good for anybody.
Well said. And you're on the phone, so you can't see, but his body language and his tone of voice was, in my opinion, very condescending, very condescending. And I don't know what these guys are, why they're being so condescending and why they're being so defensive, number one, unless they're really scared. Unless they realize this is my job, I've been tasked to do this, and to keep my job, I've got to do this. Or again, are they really scared? Are they scared? Are these extremely powerful people and forces behind the power elite, and they're go all the way to the power elite, and they're scared? But it was Pam Bondi out in front of the East Wing herself, the West Wing, I should say, herself, not too long ago, that said this. I mean, so the media is responding off of the Attorney General who said this not too long ago. Here we go.
Tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. And there are hundreds of victims. And no one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently...
You got to hear this again, guys.
Tens of thousands of videos.
Okay. But and she used, and then she went on to describe it for what it was. Children involved.
Absolutely. And where there was children involved, do you think Jeffrey Epstein alone was the sole perpetrator of sexually abusing tens of thousands? Absolutely not. Look, the American people are a common sense population, and they are in favor of justice and accountability, especially when it comes to children being harmed. And enough is enough. Todd Blanche, I don't know why he's the Deputy Attorney General, other than he was part of President Trump's defense team on one of the trials, but he's a known Democrat, and he's also a known perpetrator of resistance to Trump policies within the Department of Justice. It's been known for a while. It's an open secret, and he should be fired tonight. And put a person in there that is willing to use the justice system the way it's supposed to be used. Because if we don't do that, with all the other damage that's been caused by the Biden administration, when they went after January 6 people, and they went after Trump and his team down in Georgia through the state legal system, all of those abuses will only be piled on by this abuse, and our justice system is broken. And without a good justice system, the United States of America doesn't work. Without a good legal system and equal treatment before the law, the United States of America doesn't really exist, and it won't work, and we will continue to go down this path to anarchy.
And listen again to what Pam Bondi said today about this terrorist, because I think there's a connection.
This alleged terrorist, to the fullest extent of the law, he'll face charges related to murder, terrorism, arson, among others. Let this case serve as a reminder. If you commit a crime against the American people anywhere in this world, President Trump's Justice Department will find you.
Okay. So didn't she?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what she just said today. How is that not the case when it comes to Epstein, when they have videos, emails, pictures? And isn't this a form of terrorism? Isn't the sex trafficking what it looks to be, the sex trafficking of children? I mean, she's the one that used the word when it comes to children and the videos that she described. Is that not a form of terrorism? Of course, you and I, as fathers and both of us being fathers, both of us being grandfathers, we know darn well that is a form of terrorism.
Absolutely. It terrorizes the children and the parents that are involved in it when their children are kidnapped or surreptitiously taken and sexually abused like this. And it affects the children for the rest of their lives. Many of them, after becoming adults, have committed suicide and all kinds of horrendous, tragic outcomes as adults in these ladies' lives. And it's pitiful, and it's pathetic, and it's unacceptable. And like I said, if Blanche isn't fired, then the whole crowd and the leadership should be fired and new leadership put in that's willing to work within the legal system to bring these people to justice, because you cannot tell the American people there just weren't any perpetrators involved in this other than Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
And as you and I both know,
it's insane.
It's demoralizing the base, and it's setting up for a slaughter, politically speaking, for the midterms. Closing comment?
This, amongst other issues, is absolutely setting up for the slaughter. You know, I don't know if you saw the post today that had been put out by a staffer on Truth Social, on the president's Truth Social, that showed Barack and Michelle Obama in a monkey suit. I mean, those kind of things. We're going to lose evangelical Christians and the faithful, in addition to this issue, if we continue to do these kind of not unintended consequences, but make unforced errors like that.
100%. You know, as a grandfather of a child that's biracial, you know, I looked at that today and I thought, that's coming from my president. I mean, come on. You're the president of the United States, and you want to say that a staffer did it? Are you telling me the people around you are so incompetent they can't look at a video like that and go, that's not a good video to post. That's not presidential. We're not doing that because we know what's going to come of that. I mean, it irritated me and made me angry because, again, we are making great strides in this country. And we have made great strides. Look, I live in one of the most racially charged towns in the history of America, Memphis, Tennessee, where MLK was assassinated. We've made great strides here. There is not the racial tension in the Mid-South, in Memphis, that maybe the media and Hollywood want you to think. There really isn't. But is there still issues to improve upon? Yeah. And I think we've made great strides in America. Yeah. And this kind of thing, again, poor Donald Trump, he is his own worst enemy. And this was such a stupid forced error today. I wasn't even going to bring it up because it makes me so angry to talk about. But since you did, rightfully so. I mean, this is the president. He has a staff. The old executive office building is sitting next door with thousands upon thousands of employees in there. And you're telling me they can't watch a video that's like 70 seconds long and say, no, we're not posting that? What a stupid forced error.
It is. It's a complete unforced error, and I'm sure the president will take action. There's still time to recover, but we've got to stop making them.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Colonel Rob Maness, robmaness.com, robmaness.com, and he's on every day here at Worldview Tube, 2 p.m. Central, 3 Eastern at Worldview Tube, also robmaness.com. Colonel, have a great weekend and enjoy the Super Bowl. I guess we've all got plenty to do this weekend between the Winter Olympics and the Super Bowl. I'm not a big Super Bowl guy, but I like to watch to see what the commercials are going to be like. Not so sure about this halftime show. That sounds like that's going to be a mess. But I'm looking forward to the downhill skiing and the toboggans and the couples ice skating. Those athletes are amazing to watch. They've worked hard their whole life. So hopefully it's not highly politicized. So far, the opening ceremony is what I caught. Didn't seem to be too much craziness at all. Andrew Bocelli doing an amazing job, as always. So I'm kind of looking forward to the Winter Olympics. Closing comment on that one.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. I don't watch the NFL anymore because I'm an American military veteran, and they've disparaged the American flag too many times for me to accept. But I will be watching the Turning Point USA halftime show, and I'll catch some of the Olympics. Hopefully they're not politicized. Have a great weekend, Brandon.
You too. Rob Maness, robmaness.com. Again, you can hear him each and every day. at 2 p.m. Central, 3 Eastern Standard at worldviewtube.com. We'll be right back. What if millions around the world could access Bible teaching and worldview training for free right now without hitting a paywall? That's exactly what happens every day at worldviewtube.com because of the Worldview Weekend Foundation. We don't lock our live stream behind PayPal. We don't restrict our content to members only. Instead, the Worldview Weekend Foundation helps cover the cost of delivering free educational and ministry programming to people across the nation and around the world. And it's not just programming. My Sunday night church service, where I taught verse by verse through Revelation for 18 months, and now I am teaching through the book of Daniel, is made possible through the support of our church, Worldview Weekend Foundation. If you believe this kind of truth-centered biblical teaching must continue, donate today. Go now to worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address and phone number there if you'd rather give by phone or mail. That's worldviewfoundation.com. Thank you. Joining me now is Selwyn Duke. Hey, have you seen his article over the New American? Story on illegal Chinese biolab keeps getting scarier. Hey, as we've been telling you, this is tied back to the one in Redley, California from 2023. Remember Gordon Chang coming on with me so many times saying, Brandon, you know there are more of these around the country. You know the CCP has more of these around the country. California, Las Vegas, keep coming west. How many of these do they have spread all over the country to release when they want, well, to cause major damage? One person is called bioweapons, the poor man's nuclear weapons. Bioweapons are the poor man's nuclear weapons. Joining me now is Selwyn Duke. Selwyn, great to have you back on the broadcast. Been a while. Thanks for being here.
Well, great to be with you, Brannon.
Tell me about this. What more are we learning other than a garage full of bioweapons? What more are we learning? And again, CCP connection, second place. How many of these do you think are around the country?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we really don't know, and we understand that the Biden administration dropped the ball on this, was not conscientious at all when they discovered the first one, as you mentioned, in 2023. Now, look, I'm not a sensationalist. Let's just say that they discovered this biolab. They discovered vials and gallon containers with unknown liquids, a centrifuge, and other medical equipment. And they took more than 1,000 samples of evidence. So all of this is going to be analyzed by the FBI and maybe other entities. So look, do we know exactly what it's all about? Maybe not. Maybe Mr. Zhu, who was the man who owned both of these labs, maybe he's just another Chinese businessman who's cutting corners and flouting rules. You know, Chinese products are known for that. But at the end of the day, we have to be vigilant. You mentioned Gordon Chang. He says that all of these labs have CCP connections. Maybe they do. And, you know, the larger issue is, Brannon, and we can talk about this if you want, is that you have to view this against the backdrop of wider Chinese subversion efforts in our country. And I mean, to be brief, I can elaborate later if you want, I mean their censoring of our movies, which they've succeeded in doing, yes, as crazy as it sounds. I mean their putting of their propaganda in our schools, which they have done, their bullying of our businesses, and the Chinese police stations that we have seen around the country in the past.
Yeah, well, and then you add it to this one. This is also by you. China's American citizen James Bond villain tycoon is funding anti-ICE agitation. So China is extremely active here in America. And there are so many stories that are impacting us that are so serious. And yet, and I'm not, you know, I'm concerned about the poor lady that's missing, Savannah Guthrie's mother, 84. But this wall-to-wall coverage by Fox, I'm telling you, for the last 3 days, walking, even again this afternoon, I got off the air after talking about it, went walking through a room here at the studio where the TV was on. I had put Fox on earlier in the day because I just kind of wanted to monitor it. Sure enough, what were they talking about? This 84-year-old lady that's missing still. And they don't really know much new. They just keep speculating and speculating. They must be getting huge ratings. All the while, we have so many other vital stories the American people should be made aware of that they're not. And I said to my wife, clearly, Fox News, in my opinion, has a very uneducated, low IQ audience because they keep it really, really simple, and everybody can understand an abduction. But that's true with most talk radio, even on the conservative dial. They keep it very simple because the average American now has become so dumbed down, they couldn't handle a conversation about communist China, Iran, corporatism, communitarianism, big government, big business merging together, globalism, the idea of a North American Union and then a South American Union and the European Union, inviting the world into unions. All of these things that you and I in this audience, because they are the educated people, have dealt with. Most of our family and friends, talking about in this audience, their family and friends don't know about these things and they don't want to know about these things. So they gravitate to stories that are very simple, like this very tragic story out of Arizona, and they run with it. And I think it's because it's very easy for people to understand without having to think. I think people today don't want to think. But look at all the news anchor time being taken up, not discussing these massive existential threats to our country like you're bringing up right now.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I wouldn't say it's anything new, though. I know there was an ancient Roman, Brannon, who said that the average man cares about, quote, the pebble in his shoe. And the truth is that we have a great mass of people in this country, Bill O'Reilly has mentioned this, who are completely disengaged. Many of them vote, but they don't really care what's going on. They're not tuned in to the pulse of our society or the world. Now, maybe a few days before an election, they might look at the news a little bit or listen to political commercials, but they just are not aware. And it's a real problem because, as you said, these are really big stories that involve existential matters. You mentioned that that man who's operating out of China, that James Bond-like person, as I called him, and he really does look like Blofeld from James Bond, but his name is Neville Roy Singham. Well, he made $785 million selling ThoughtWorks in 2017, I believe it was. And then he decamped to Shanghai sometime afterwards. And now he pursues his favorite hobby, which is destabilizing the United States. He's been helping to fund these anti-ICE protests. He funded before that the pro-Palestinian protests. So, yeah, these are big, big stories. And unfortunately, when you talk about China, again, as I point out in my article, this is not your average run-of-the-mill civilization. It's unique. It's been around for almost 4,000 years, the Chinese culture, language, the Chinese people. It's arguably the oldest civilization on Earth, and they're playing the long game, and they want to knock us off our perch. There's no doubt about it. And they're projecting what they call soft power in order to accomplish that. Soft power, what does that mean? What I mentioned before, putting propaganda in schools, having their police stations here. The other things I mentioned, bullying our businesses, getting a pro-China stance. They want those businesses to take that stance. That's what they call the projection of soft power. And we're busy worrying about, quote, gender issues and DEI, which shouldn't even exist. And we're eating ourselves alive with lawsuits and racial fighting between races and groups. Just terrible, terrible. We're lambs being led off to the slaughter.
And then, of course, one of your articles, you're also talking about the issue of why the Democrats don't want voter ID, which is obviously clear. They want these illegals voting, don't they?
They absolutely want them voting, but it's not only that. You know this well, but when you're talking about apportionment, that means how many congressional seats a given state is going to get. That's based on population. The larger your population, the more seats you get. Therefore, the more power you have in Congress. Now, the thing is, though, when they take the census and ascertain your population, they count all the people in your state, not just the citizens. So if you have illegals there, that increases your population, increases your representation in Congress, increases your power. So, yes, it's very obvious that the people who don't want voter ID are not the good guys. Look, this is not a unique point, but everything you do in life, they require ID for. I mean, you turn around, you want to board a plane, you want to visit the White House. If you want government benefits, you've got to verify your identity. It just goes on and on and on. But then all of a sudden with voting, that's not supposed to matter. No, I mean, it's a terrible thing. I live in New York. Let me tell you something. I've never been asked for ID, and I left the Bronx many years ago. Anyone could have gone into that old polling station in the Bronx that I used to go to and could have said, I'm Selwyn Duke, and could have voted in my name. Maybe it happened. I have no idea. But that's a strategy that is pursued by the left.
So tell me, what are some of the other big issues you're watching? that give you grave concern that you should inform the audience about tonight? Anything I'm missing?
I don't think you're missing it, but we've discussed this in the past. First of all, the most significant thing is the moral decline of our nation. I emphasize over and over and over again what the founding fathers did, which is that if you do not have virtue in the people, everything else is for naught. Right now, I'm crafting an article that was written by a college professor at Sarah Lawrence College, which is not too far from me. And he was talking about how political violence is being normalized among young people. He sees it in his politics class, and he's shocked. You know, they just think that they're righteous in taking this position. But no one cuts to the heart of the matter. The problem is that we have raised generations now with a decreasing sense of virtue. Thomas Sowell, the economics professor and great commentator, put it very well. I'm paraphrasing. He said, every civilization born is in essence an invasion of civilization. I'm sorry, every generation born, I think I misspoke. Every generation born is in essence an invasion of civilization by barbarians who must be civilized before it's too late. That's the truth. And you do that by inculcating virtue. Virtue refers to that set of objectively good moral habits. If morality came in a jar, the virtues would be on the ingredients label. Charity, chastity, courage, diligence, faith, love, so on and so forth. When you understand that, you realize that creating moral people and a moral civilization is not really that complicated. It's easy to understand. It's difficult to do. But that's the biggest issue we're confronted with. That's why people, Brannon, would rather hear about frivolity, such as these more minor issues that you mentioned, although that woman who's missing, that's certainly heartbreaking. But that's why they would rather focus on celebrities than what really matters, because they're not virtuous at heart. And when people are frivolity minded, they're going to gravitate towards frivolity, of course.
Take a look here. He has a long string of articles. You'll find them at thenewamerican.com, thenewamerican.com. Just look for his articles, click his name when you find his articles on the homepage. And when you do that, you'll find all of his articles lined up there at thenewamerican.com. Been a long time since we visited with you. We need to get you back on as a regular. But I saw your article. We've got to get Selwyn back, because I think this article related to the Chinese biolabs, I think this is a big, big story. It's not nearly getting enough traction. And, you know, again, Americans aren't really aware or prepared about what to do. They always wait, okay, until a crisis happens. I was, talking over the last few weeks. We had a big ice storm here in the Mid-South outside of Memphis, stretching from down in Mississippi all the way up through Memphis, up into Nashville, and horrific ice conditions. Schools here in the Mid-South closed for 2 weeks. Here is Friday. They have not been in school for 2 weeks. I guess they'll go now Monday. No mail delivery for 2 weeks. No Amazon for 2 weeks. And when this storm was coming in, I went to the Lowe's to pick up a couple things. We're pretty prepared here. But I had a couple things I wanted to grab, some extra things for my fireplace for wood, and I had plenty of wood, but the fire starter, logs, etc. And man, they had 3 huge trucks of gas generators that came in, and the people for hours, because then Logan ran back up there later, and it was still going on. They're all grabbing gas generators. And I'm thinking to myself, at this point, wouldn't you already have one of those? I mean, I've got a couple of them. So the reality is everyone waits until there's a crisis. Well, if you have a bio attack on the country, you may not have any time to prepare. How many people have what you need to prepare for some kind of biological attack on the country? And unfortunately, I don't think there's a lot that are people that are ready or even thinking about this. Closing comment?
Yeah, no, there aren't many at all. And, unfortunately, we have become so disorganized and so destabilized and so balkanized that it's hard to get our own ship in order. I mean, you have people running around, and I should mention this, who could be agents of the CCP, and we don't even know it. And here's what I wanted to point out. There was a commenter who said online, we really can't trust these Chinese who come in. And you might say, well, that's just prejudice. Well, let me tell you this. In 2017, I believe it was, the Chinese government instituted this law, Brannon, that states that every single Chinese company or business, every single citizen must spy for the Chinese government when asked, okay? So we have good reason to view all these Chinese nationals on our shores with a jaundiced eye. It's very, very important that we do that. They are not like the United States. In our country, you can make millions of dollars impugning the nation and being anti-American. In China, they're different. They're largely homogeneous. They're very, very culturally, nationally, and even racially, yes, chauvinistic. And like I said, they are playing to win. They're not saying, hey, we're going to look at all of our past flaws and we're going to beat each other up. No, they want to win this battle for primacy in the world. And they view us as what we are, their main geopolitical rival. Unfortunately, too many Americans don't understand that China is our main geopolitical rival. Everyone's focusing on Russia. And okay, it deserves a little attention. But guess what? Military power flows from economic power. And China's economy is 8 times the size of Russia's. There's no comparison. It's a much more formidable civilization. And Russia could have been made our ally, by the way. China is much more different than we are. It's not Western in any way, shape, or form. And we should take it very, very seriously. If the mainstream media were doing their job, there would be more focus on it.
Well said. Well said. Selwyn Duke at thenewamerican.com, thenewamerican.com. Have a great weekend, Selwyn.
You too. God bless. God
you
bless.
too, my friend. We'll be right back, guys, right after this short break. Studies have shown America's water supply is not safe. It is filled with toxins and chemicals. Go look it up. This is fact. Fact check me. And then I'll offer you this solution. Worldviewwater.net. Take a look at this list. This water purifier removes all kinds of harmful toxins like lead, fluoride, chlorine, arsenic, pesticides, bacteria, and pharmaceuticals, and more. This is the water I give to my 3 dogs. I drink it every day. I have one of the filters in my kitchen, under the kitchen sink, and then I have one on my shower. Do you know how much your skin absorbs of water when you're in the shower each and every day? Protect yourself and your body. Remain healthy. Eat good food. Drink purified, clean water. One of the most powerful water filters available in America. Worldviewwater.net. That's worldviewwater.net. Again, tell your family and friends about it. In fact, maybe even give this as a gift to some of your family and friends, particularly those of you who have children and grandchildren. Worldviewwater.net. All right, do you guys hear what the new mayor of New York City, Mamdani, said today? Let's listen, and then we'll have Usama Dakdok comment.
I think of the freedom from suffering that Buddhism teaches us is only possible if we remove the 3 poisons of desire, hatred, and ignorance from our daily lives. We need not accept suffering as unchangeable. We need not treat hatred as the natural state. We have the power to set ourselves free. And I consider my own faith, Islam, a religion built upon a narrative of migration. The story of the Hijrah reminds us that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was a stranger too, who fled Mecca and was welcomed in Medina. Surah An-Nahl 1642 tells us, as for those who immigrated in the cause of Allah after being persecuted, we will surely bless them with a good home in this world. Or as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, Islam began as something strange and will go back to being strange. So glad tidings to the strangers. If faith offers us the moral compass to stand alongside the stranger, government can provide the resources. Let us create a new expectation of City Hall, where power is wielded to love, to embrace, and to protect. We will stand with the stranger today.
Oh, wow. Stand with the stranger today if the government can provide the money. Yeah, that's called socialism, my friends. Socialism. Yep. And there was another line. I thought I had it here. I had another clip of him where he said something else. It was, you bookmark that too? Because there was a particular line. He said, oh, yeah, it's about the Prophet Muhammad. Let's see here. What did he say here? Here we go. Listen to this, folks. Here we go.
The story of the Hijrah reminds us that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was a stranger too, who fled Mecca and was welcomed in Medina. Surah An-Nahl 1642 tells us, as for those who immigrated in the cause of Allah after being persecuted, we will surely bless them with a good home in this world. Or as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, Islam began as something strange and will go back to being strange. So glad tidings to the strangers.
Okie dokie. So let's talk about immigration. Usama Dakdok joins us, born and raised in Egypt, an expert on Islam, translated the Quran into perfect English from Arabic. You can find it at thestraightway.org if you want to get a true, accurate description of Islam without the whitewash. You can go to thestraightway.org. He joins us now. Usama, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Okay, so the immigration is very crucial according to him and according to Mohammed. Speak to that issue, please.
Absolutely. First of all, thanks, Brannon, for having me on, and greetings to all of our wonderful audience in the name of our Lord and our Savior, Jesus Christ. Mamdani was quoting Quran chapter 16 and verse 41, which he called 42. By the way, you see that error of all Muslim foreigners like Mamdani who do not speak Arabic, because they think that the number of the verse will come at the beginning of the verse, not in the end of the verse. It's a little bit weird, not like in the case of the Bible. You read the number of the verse and then you read the verse. In the Quran, you read the verse and then you read the number of the verse. So how much he knows about Islam is how foolish he is, does not even know what the number of the verse he's quoting. And I will quote for you that verse again. Quran chapter 16 and verse 41. And those who immigrated for the sake of Allah after they have been treated unjustly. We're going to talk a little bit about treated unjustly in a minute here as we continue with the verse. We will surely in this world give them good, and in the wage of the hereafter is bigger. And the wage of the hereafter is bigger if they were knowing. That verse, if you look at the scholar's interpretation, because Muslims will use that to tell you, look, in Muhammad days, they were persecuted and they're having a hard time and they escaped for their life out of Mecca to Medina, which is 210 miles north of Mecca. And there they were welcomed by who? By the Christian and the Jew. But the true story, as you go to the scholar's interpretation, they will tell you the interpreter disagreed. They do not know what the verse is talking about. Was it about Muhammad and his companion Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, that is the father-in-law who gave his child at the age of 6 to be married to the Prophet of Allah Muhammad at the age of 51, who, by the way, began to have sexual relationship with her 3 years later. So Muhammad was 54 and she was 9. That is what we call pedophilia, all right? Or that verse actually was talking about other people. And the scholars of Islam will give you different names. For example, they will tell you that was written concerning a man, his name is Suhaib. Or another guy by the name Bilal. Or another guy by the name Khabab. And Ammar. So they do not know why the verse was given. But in general, they will give you the reasons why Muslims immigrated from Mecca to Medina. Because they were persecuted. Brannon, you have to understand that Muhammad lived in Mecca 13 years claiming to be a prophet. He began at the age of 40 and he left Mecca at the age of 53. And scholars of Islam disagree also about the number of those who believed in him in these long 13 years. Some said 13 members, which means that Muhammad have one convert every year, or 47, or 74. You know what? I will round the number, make it easy, 100. Imagine with me, Muhammad lived in Mecca for 13 years, and he gained 100 converts. By the way, many of them were slaves, which Muhammad bought with his wife, Khadija's money, the rich lady which he himself used to work for. In any case, just if you want to compare this, Brannon, to Act 2, and the Apostle Peter gave a sermon, I think a good 15 minutes, you can read it in the book of Acts chapter 2, and 3,000 people got saved. 3,000 in 15 minutes, comparing to a good 13 years, and we rounded the number very good, generously, and we made them 100 converts. How many of these people were really persecuted? None. Why? Because trust me, Brendan, if the people of Mecca, the idol worshippers, whom Muhammad mocked and disregard their belief in their God, want to persecute Muhammad and his companion, it will take them roughly around 25, 30 seconds to kill Muhammad and those who follow him. But there was no persecution. And the proof is that in the interpretation of the great Muslim scholar Al-Tabari, he would tell you, oh, they were persecuted because they were forbidden to leave their homes. They were hauled onto them. Or they were treated not good because they were kicked out of their homes. Make up your mind, scholars of Islam. Were they persecuted because they were kicked out of their homes, which, by the way, none of them own a home, or because they were hauled onto them, they don't want them to go? That is the narrative. That is the propaganda concerning Quran chapter 16 and verse 41. This is the original immigration. By the way, when you study the history of Islam, you see that Muhammad sent 20 of his companions first to Ethiopia, a country in Africa, to migrate there. And they were living there under a Christian king, under a Christian rulers. Why does he love Christians? Why does he love you? I don't know. How he treats them afterwards, that's a different story. Then Muhammad invented the satanic verse in the Quran, where in it he praised Allah and Al-Uzza and the Manat, three gods that people of Christ used to worship. Then this, okay, Muhammad, you're cool, you can all come back. And then the people who went to Ethiopia, who migrated, came back. And then later, obviously, Muhammad figured out, even when he praised the false gods, it did not work. Hardly anybody believed in him. That's why Muhammad and his companion, by their free will, migrated from Mecca to Medina, 210 miles north. And that is the original story of migration.
And
that verse.
And now they're using migration to take down the country, correct?
Oh, of course. Because in the teaching of Muhammad, later after Muhammad became a militant and have all these followers of him right and left, he set the new laws, the new Sharia, the one Muslim live by. You cannot migrate from one country to another unless you are migrating to fulfill your duty before Allah, as it is written throughout the pages of the Quran. Brannon, if you look for the word hajiru, immigrated, in the Quran, you find it written 11 times. And I will give you the reference quickly. Quran chapter 2, verse 218. Quran chapter 3, verse 195. Quran chapter 4, verses 89 and 97. Quran chapter 8, verse 72 and 74 and 75. Quran chapter 9, verse 20, 41. And that is the verse we just quote, Quran chapter 16, verse 110, and finally Quran chapter 22 and verse 58. And in all these verses, it is the repeated sentence, same sentence. If you choose any of these verses, they all say the same thing. Those who believe, migrated, perform jihad for the sake of Allah with their life and with their money, and that is the reward for them. They're going to be rewarded. As we just read in that verse, they will be rewarded in this world life with good. If you look at the interpretation of all scholars, what does Allah mean with good? Oh, the invasion. Excuse me, what? You migrated to America and Allah will bless you by give you America to invade it? Yes, indeed. That's what Allah said. And in the hereafter is even better. Why? Because you're going to get to the paradise, especially if you fulfill the rest of the teaching of the same verse. They migrate because they believe in Allah and they perform jihad. So obviously, this is the whole agenda of Muslim migration. You will never, Brannon, see any Muslim in the West, if it is Europe, if it is Australia, if it is Canada, if it's America, out of the 56 Muslim country, you will never see them migrate to assimilate or to, melt in the melting pot. That's a no in Islam. They're here, as our friend Charlie Kirk said, they immigrate without assimilate because they are here to invade. That is exactly. And that is the words of Allah, that they will be blessed in this world by invading that land. And then obviously for eternity, that's when they get to their paradise, if they die for the sake of Allah while they are performing jihad. Sad news, Brother Brannon.
Sad news indeed. All right, let's go to Iran real quick. What do you make? I mean, the Trump administration is continuing to try to negotiate with Iran. It looks like it's not going well there in Oman. They don't want to give up, apparently, their uranium enrichment, ballistic missiles, etc. Some of us here in America have been very cautious about us striking Iran. Let's just let Israel do it. That was our position on the 12-day war. Annie felt the same way. I think David Pine felt the same way. Maybe America doesn't need to be dragged into something. Let's let Israel do it and back them up. What is your take on this?
I believe that will be the smartest thing to do. I don't want American soldiers get involved in any war, not in Iran, not anywhere else. I believe the Iranian Muslim mullah there, Khomeini and his people, would love to have American soldiers on ground there, so they can kill few of us, even if we kill much of them. Because for them, like the people of Hamas, like the people of Hezbollah, like any jihadi group, when they kill one infidel, it is a victory, even if the infidels kill 10,000 of them. That's the reality. And I don't know why we are dragging our feet, why we're going slow, because every day we're losing thousands. I just got text message yesterday from a Christian brother in Iran who lost the entire church. They actually wiped out 20 people of his church. And the women were raped before they were killed in Iran. And nobody talk about that.
Okay, we stop right there. We stop right there. Are you telling me that they raped Christian Iranians?
Yeah.
And why is this not on the news? Why is it nonstop about an 84-year-old lady kidnapped out of Tucson? I feel sorry for the family. I hope they find her alive. But nonstop coverage when they don't really know anything new, nonstop, but we don't hear coverage of 20 women, or how many of it is you say there is, of this church in Iran raped by the Muslims before they're killed.
And killed.
We don't have time to do shows on that, apparently, Usama.
No. Sadly, in my broadcast, which I do on VCY on Friday, I only have the half-hour show, and then we record a show which is current events, which is 1 hour. And Brannon, it eat me inside me when I have 30, 40 story every week, and I have to choose 9 or 10. And disregard the other 20-some stories because we don't have time to cover it. I can record it, but I don't know what to do with it.
All right, well, tell me what you know more about this man that's texted you, this pastor, and tell me some of these other stories you're hearing.
Well, brother, it is Muslims' action is all over the world. It is the fruit of Islam, which fall from the tree, from which our Lord Jesus have told us. From the fruit, you know the tree. The tree of Islam is a very ugly tree. Islam is a savage cult. And wherever you see Muslim, you see rape. I mean, we have in Europe every week. Last week, we just have 2 stories. They raped a young child, 9 years old, and they raped an elderly lady, 90 years old. Imagine with me, 9 and 90 on the same week. And that's all over Europe. So the rape is normal there. The kidnapping is normal there. And I love it how they kidnap them from the bars. Of course, people in Europe, they are free. They are living in sin. As these wonderful young girls go to bars to get drunk, and the Muslim pick them up. They give them a ride to a hotel or to some place to rape them. And they will tell you it was consensual sex. I mean, she wanted me to have sex with her. But at 90 years old, and by the way, the 90 years old did not call it like fully rape because the Muslim man knocked at the door before he went inside her house. You know how sick that is, Brannon. So the fruit of Islam is shown very clearly all over the West. And what make me sick in my stomach, that not Fox News, which they consider themselves to be conservative, not even the other station who make fun of Fox, talk about it like Real American News. They don't talk about that. And my audience is less than 10,000. So I'm literally singing to my choir, 10,000 people. And I'm glad that we have a chance to come on your show because you have a bigger audience, obviously. But we need to stop protecting the Muslims and Islam. When Mamdani made the speech and nobody covered it and nobody told the true story about immigration, they're not here because they're seeking a better life, Brandon. They're here because they're invading America. And he talked like Obama talked a few years ago about what a wonderful Christian we are when we open our country to the Muslim world to come to invade us. Because if you continue with the story of Muhammad migration from Mecca to Medina, you find out 3 years later, Muhammad owned the city of Yathrib. That is which he changed its name to Medina. It used to be a Jewish community. He killed the Jewish people, one tribe at the time, and he took over the entire city, renamed it to Medina. And that is exactly the blueprint which Muslims have been using in the last 1460 years. Yes, they immigrate. Yes, because they're believer, not to assimilate with any society they go to, but to take over. And that is what it is: infiltration and invasion. This is exactly what Muslims have done in Europe. Sadly, we lost all Europe. And we're about to lose America because, once again, nobody tells the true story about immigration. You cannot read immigration in the Quran without reading jihad. They are tied together. And if Muslims will travel from the Muslim world to a foreign world for any other reason except for performing jihad, they are committing sin. Muhammad taught the Muslims the hadith: no immigration after he came back to Mecca except for invasion. That is the blueprint. That is the steps which Muslims have been using in the world for the last 1400 and some years, and nobody knows what's going on.
So tell me what you think is going to happen with Israel, with Iran, and do you think we're headed for a wider war there?
I believe Israel have to attack Iran, not only for freeing the people of Iran. I don't think the Jewish people care less about freeing the people of Iraq. It is about protecting themselves. It's about their own survival. And when they do that, I guarantee you that when you see some enmity, hatred by many other Muslim countries who already hate the Jewish people for such attack, and maybe that will lead us to the final war, which means we are in the end of our existing on this earth. Nobody knows the time or the hour, but that is how I see it coming up. I don't want America to be involved, but I need America to support Israel, because Israel by themselves cannot do it. They have the intelligence, they need the weapons, they need the okay from America. I do not know, is Mr. Trump talking to other European countries, some of our allies in the Middle East, to get the green light to go ahead and do it? But I say every day we wait, we are too late, because that means lots of Christians are killed. And sadly, those who have been struggling from 1979, I believe, 79, yeah, that's from the days of Carter until today, the people of Iran are crying out to the world to free them from the foolishness which the Democratic Party did through Carter, the Sunday school teacher, to make Iran a jihadi country by removing Shah and bring al-Khomeini.
I want to go real quick to a story. You and I were in Katy, Texas. I don't remember the year. I'm going to say it was probably around 2008, 2009. We were in Katy, Texas for a free Worldview Weekend rally on a Sunday night. And I came in with my family and motor coach that afternoon to set up. And I was low on diesel. And so I pulled up to a gas station right on the same block as the church. You could actually, they shared a parking lot.
I remember the story.
You remember this? And I want to tell the audience again, because we're always adding new people. And I pulled up to this gas station that had diesel, and I got out, and my wife was the only one with me on that trip. We were doing several cities through Texas, and you were with me and your motor coach. But I got there before you did the setup, and pulled up to the station to get diesel, got out, started pumping the diesel. And while I was standing there waiting on the diesel to fill the coach, this man came out, Middle Eastern looking man, and said, "What a beautiful motor coach. Beautiful. Where are you coming from? Where are you headed?" I said, "Well, I'm headed to that church right there, about 100 yards away, sharing a parking lot. I'm going to do a conference there tonight." And he said, "Oh, wow, wonderful. About that time, my wife opened the door of the motor coach and handed me a bag of garbage, a Glad bag full of garbage from inside the coach. And she said, "Do you mind dumping this?" And I looked at him. I said, "Is that okay if I dump this in your dumpster here, your container here?" He said, "Oh yeah, fine." So I did. And he said, what a beautiful coach, you and your wife together traveling. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I said, "You own this gas station?" He said, "Oh yeah, I own this gas station." And he said, "Would you like a Coca-Cola?" I said, "No, I'm good. I'm going to come in and pay, but no, I'm good. Thank you." And he chit-chatted with me a little bit, went inside. I went inside to pay. And as I went up to the counter, he had 2 bottles of water there, 2 cold bottles of water. He said, "Here, these are for you and your wife. And thank you for stopping and getting your diesel from me. And anytime you're in the area, I hope you'll stop by." And I said, "Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it." I paid for my diesel and took the waters, thanked him, and left. Pulled over to the church, unloaded, set up, had our conference. As you know, we go for 3-4 hours by the time we sign books and visit with people. Got late. We packed our coaches up. And I think we were headed to San Antonio from there, from Katy, Texas, suburb of Houston. And when this was a Sunday night, we had an event Monday night in San Antonio. And neither one of us was tired. So we said, let's travel on up to San Antonio. And you said, "Great, I'll follow you. But I got to first get some diesel." And I said, "Well, go over there to that gas station there. They got diesel." Nice guy. He was very friendly. Gave me free bottled water, very friendly. You should do business with him. So I'll pull over there and wait for you. So I pulled my motor coach over to the side. I got my driver window open. You're dieseling up your motor coach. I'm waiting on you. And you go in to pay, and you took forever to come out. I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. I'm like, what is going on with you, Usama? What is going on? And you came out, and you said, "So you think he's a nice guy, huh?" I said, "What?" He said, "I'll call you." And you got in your coach. I took off. You're behind me. And you called me. And what did you tell me?
Well, I went aside, and when I looked at him, obviously, I figured out from the way he looked, he's a Middle Eastern. I said, "Assalamu alaikum." He said, "Wa alaikum salam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh." So
what does that mean? What does that mean?
It's a Muslim greeting. The peace of Allah be on you. The peace of Allah and His blessing be on you. That's
Now,
what he
you said that to him?
Yes, because that's how I talk to the Muslim in the Middle East, and then I started speaking to him in Arabic, and he could not answer me back. And I said, "Well, you don't speak Arabic?" He said, "No." I said, "Why?" He said, "I'm from Iran. I am a Persian. I speak Farsi." I said, "What kind of Muslim you don't speak Arabic? How do you pray?" "Well, I pray in Arabic." I said, "But you pray in Arabic, you don't speak to me in Arabic?" He said, "Well, I memorize my prayer like all good Muslims do." Then anyway, so I said, "So what's up?" He said, "Oh, soon we're going to have the nuclear, and we're going to nuke Israel, and we're going to take over America. We're going to take over the whole world." And in my mind, I said, what a wonderful, good Muslim man. He is about to take over Israel and America while I'm standing with him to pay him for filling my tank in his gas station. And in my mind, and Brannon think he's a good guy. What is going on here with Brannon? Anyway, so that's, of course, I told you the story after I left. And you know what, Brannon? We can make a program about stories like that. We can actually, from my experience, from September 11 until today, I can share a good 70, 80 stories like that in America, where Muslims talk to me thinking I'm a Muslim, and they open their chest and they buke all the hatred they have towards America to me, as they thought I'm a Muslim Egyptian. And when they found in the end I'm a Christian Egyptian, they run away from me.
Yeah.
Before and after, you know.
He was friendly. He thought that it was great that we did Christian conferences. We're going to go over there and do a Christian conference.
Yeah.
I said, "So you own the gas station?" He said, "Yeah, I haven't owned it that long." I said, "What did you do before that?" He said, "I own strip clubs, but my girlfriend didn't like me owning strip clubs." That's what he told me. So my girlfriend didn't like me owning strip clubs, so I sold them and I bought some gas stations. Now, whether all that's true or not, I don't know. I'm just telling you what he told me. And so I'm like, well, that's probably a pretty good career choice to make, to gas stations. So I wasn't under the impression the man was a Christian, but I just figured he's some guy from the Middle East heritage.
Yeah.
But he was very complimentary that we were going to go over there and do a Christian conference.
They all do that, Brandon.
He wasn't hostile to me, to my face at all. He wasn't hostile to me.
You could not meet a Muslim man who does any business in America unless they are like that. That is what we call taqiyya.
That's taqiyya.
Yes, Quran chapter 3 and verse 28, where Muslims are ordered by Allah never to take a Jew or a Christian, any infidel for friends. But here is the exception, except that you should guard yourself. The word guard yourself is to practice taqiyya, to protect yourself from them. Imagine if he would tell you, I'm here because I hate your guts. I'm here because we're going to do anything we can to take over America, and we're going to nuke Israel out of the face of the earth. That man will be arrested and thrown out of America. So the best way for him to protect himself while he's living in America is to pretend to take us for friends. As the interpreters, the scholars of Islam, like Al-Jalalain said, you can take the infidels as friend with your tongue. That's what you just heard by your ears. With your tongue, not with your heart. So every Muslim in America are the best friend you can ever have. And they will be our best friend until when they have the upper hand. Quran 47:35. And that is when Allah said, do not be weak, calling for peace when you have the upper hand. So right now, they are so wonderful, not for long. Not for long.
Yeah.
Why? Because they are planning to fulfill their duty after they migrated, which is to perform jihad for the sake of Allah.
Now, he was from Iran, and he was very excited that Iran was going to get the nuclear bomb and take out Israel. Did he also mention attacking America?
Oh, yeah. He said, we'll take over America. All over America. I mean, not just one state here or there. And that is the Muslim agenda. All the Muslims in America, they have one blueprint, one plan, which is the destruction of America from within. They think, and I believe they will fulfill that dream will become reality.
Now,
They
when you
will
told him
use
you were a
hand-
Christian and you were opposed to this, what did he say to you?
Oh, no. I never told him I'm a Christian. I just walked out. I did not. It's just, it made me sick enough from what we have talked about. And I said, okay, see ya. Goodbye.
I thought he cursed at you, though.
No. Well, I've been cursed by others. Trust me. I tell you, I got stories we can share. I was thrown out of businesses before, too, because they found out I'm a Christian. They think actually I deceived them. But I never deceived them. We say assalamu alaikum, shalom on you, peace on you. That does not make me a Muslim. And at the same time, I never said I'm a Muslim.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of your way of laying the foundation to see what they're going to say, right? You just kind of laid a trap by doing that, right?
After September 11, I was a little bit upset, Brennan, and I was trying to figure out what in the mind of the Muslim of America and what I thought it was the reality. They all celebrate September 11. They all love the death of American. They all cannot wait for the final day when they will perform jihad openly all over America, killing the American men, raping their wives and daughters, raising Muslim babies, and establish Islamic law and Islamic State worldwide. And that is the goal of Sayyid Qutb, the second man in charge of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt after Hassan al-Banna. He wrote a book, I read it 10 years ago or so, about the world peace. And he said, the world will never see peace unless Islam take over the world, because Islam is the answer. Al-Islam huwa al-hal, which is the logo for the Muslim Brotherhood.
Tell me this in closing. What's the latest on the Christians being murdered in other countries like Nigeria, Syria?
We covered another story. 27, I believe, were killed last week in Nigeria, and they were Christians. And I don't think the line was drawn in the sand, was shown very well. I mean, it's like Trump made the decision. He hit some ISIS bases there, but I think we need to do more than that. That's a third attack on Christian since his attack when Mr. Trump gave an order for attacking ISIS in 70 some places.
When they kill them in Nigeria, how are they doing it?
Well, it's different. I mean, in some places years ago, remember now, we're talking about from 2009 until today, over 100,000 Christians were killed. And some places
in Nigeria.
In Nigeria. in Nigeria, just from 2009 until today. And if you dig deep in it, you find that it's always happened in the northern part of Nigeria, because Christians are very stronger in the southern part of Nigeria, but they're not going to be stronger for a long time. And it is a war between the people who have these cows and sheep and the owner of the land. Christians own the land. The guys who travel with the cows and the sheep and whatever, they are the Muslims, and they will break the fences of the Christians to allow the sheep and the cow to eat their crops, which is not fair. And when the Christians try to defend themselves, they kill them. And sometimes they just literally, there are incidents where they go to the church, lock the windows on the door of the church, and burn the church, and all the believers inside the church are burned alive. This is in your face. It is jihad of fire against the Christian of Nigeria. And many other ways. Sometimes they just go to school, kidnap the Christians, and then they sell the girls for slavery. And the boys also, they take for slavery. It is savage. What is happening in Nigeria? It is a clear picture, and I hate to see that Muslims, they say, this is not Islam. Islam is love, Islam is peace. My foot! That is exactly what your Muhammad did, his companion did, and the followers of his companion did. That's exactly what Muslims has been doing from the days of Muhammad until today. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed.
Let me show you this here. Here's a little Arizona State Land Development. Okay, Arizona State Land Development. So everybody sees this there. Official Twitter site, the Arizona State Land Development. The Qatar City concept was created by a local real estate brokerage firm without our knowledge, input, or approval. We do not have an application related to this concept. There's their full statement. What then we know, of course, we have Annie Cyrus, who wrote a big article, Arizona's Trojan Horse, Qatar City. What looks like investment today becomes enforcement tomorrow. Are you following this Qatar City in Arizona?
Yeah, this is not just happening only in Arizona. It's happening all over America. All over America. 10 years ago, in Arizona, there were some farmers complaining about the level of water is going down because the Saudi who bought lots of land there were digging deep water well and taking all the water to grow their hay, which they take out of America back to Saudi Arabia to feed the horses. And I was shocked how much land they're taking. They're talking about thousands and thousands of acres. So Muslim buying land in America is a sign of invasion, because someday these land, whatever they're doing it will be a Muslim cities. It's going to be a Muslim communities. And there's nothing you can stop it. You and I, Brannon, cannot go right now to many of these Muslim countries like Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or Qatar and buy a building. You cannot buy a building. They allow you in some of these countries to rent, but not to buy. Why we are allowed them to buy our country? Why we are allowed them to buy our land? And what they're going to do with it in the near future, only God knows. I know, and God knows, of course, they are taking over America. So if you own a land here, you can put whoever or whomever you like to live on it. And all it takes is just to bring a liberal president with a liberal agenda, and there'll be millions of Muslims moving to these cities or this huge property, thousands and thousands of acres, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. It is Muslim taking over America legally, invading America legally. And God help us when the day comes, Brannon.
TheStraightWay.org, TheStraightWay.org. Usama Dakdok. Thank you, Usama, for trying to help us understand the times and know how to respond and explain all this to family and friends so we can try to wake up the American people.
Thank you, Brannon. Appreciate you.
We'll be right back after this break. The dollar is dying. It's going down, and inflation is soaring. Are you prepared to lose through inflation your life saving, your purchasing power? I don't think you have to. I would urge you to go right now to worldviewgold.com. Worldviewgold.com. Get the free packet of information available, because you know what? I've been working with this company for about 17 years, and I trust them. Now, look, I don't give financial advice. I give financial opinion. And my opinion is you should do your own homework and your own due diligence. And I think that starts with getting the free, no obligation packet of information on how to put gold into your IRA, how to acquire physical gold or silver, or what is known as numismatic, 1933 and older. Education is crucial, and it starts with this free packet at worldviewgold.com, worldviewgold.com, or 1-877-864-1072, 1-877-864-1072, worldviewgold.com. All right, guys, take a look at this. I shared this in my Bible study on Sunday night a couple weeks ago. Luke Air Force Base, okay? This is from 2009. Former Iraqi general speaks to Luke members. Fascinating article. We're going to have someone on here in just 1 second who was born and raised in Iraq. Listen, there was standing room only last week with special guest Major General George Sada, former Vice Air Marshal of the Iraqi Air Force and advisor to Saddam Hussein. He shared his stories, his history, and faith with the audience of more than 300 Luke members and honorary commanders. Quote, it's a great privilege and honor for me to be here at this beautiful air base with an aircraft I love very much, F-16, end quote. He said, quote, of course, I wish to fly. We'll go on from there, but we're going to skip on down. He said that he was involved in the leadership there in Iraq. He said, quote, when I was an advisor, I would raise my hand when I wanted to speak, and he, Saddam, used to like to listen to me, end quote. Quote, I was never a threat because I was a Christian. Because I was a Christian, he knew I would not kill or betray him or take his position. A Christian couldn't be president. He used to feel safe around me. I would speak out, and many people have told me that if I was not a Christian, I would have been dead a long time ago, end quote. He was forced to retire in 1986 because he was the only general who at the time was not a member of the Ba'ath Party. But in 1990, Saddam asked him to come back just as the first Gulf War started. Quote, they asked me for a solution, and I said it was very easy. I told them we cannot go to war with these nations. I told them the solution was to withdraw forces from Kuwait and that we had made a strategic mistake and must solve it. They said if I said that again, my head would be cut from my body. I shut my mouth. They didn't listen, end quote. During the conflict, Saddam personally put General Sada in charge of downed pilots who were taken as prisoners of war. He became responsible for 21 Americans, 16 British, 5 Saudis, 2 Italians, and 1 Kuwaiti POW. He was tested on January 24th, 1991, when one of Saddam's sons brought 5 armed guards to General Sada and said the pilots were to be executed then and there. General Sada tried to reason with Saddam's son, but he wouldn't listen. Quote, I asked God what I should tell this crazy man. So I told him the moment he kills these people, America is going to declare another war, this time between America and his family. The Husseins didn't care if 5 million Iraqis die, but when it's personal for them, they think twice. That opened his eyes, and he left, end quote. The pilots' lives were spared, but for his actions, General Sada was thrown in jail and then dismissed from the army. In 2002, before Operation Iraqi Freedom started, General Sada sided with the coalition and tried in vain to persuade Saddam to abdicate and leave Iraq. His pleas were ignored, and General Sada stayed in the United Kingdom as the invasion began. General Sada went on to be a leader. He was a leader there before and after, a leader of some of the evangelical churches in Iraq. I shared that in my Bible study on Sunday nights as I'm going through the book of Daniel, because we know that Babylon, or Babel, is about 58 miles south of Baghdad, Iraq. Here was, if you will, a modern-day Daniel, a Christian on the administration staff of someone like Saddam Hussein, Daniel, in the court of Nebuchadnezzar. Many were making this reference when his book was written and this story surfaced. Here he is speaking at Luke Air Force Base. I want to bring on my friend Tina Blanco, who is from Iraq. You know her and her sister, of course, is Dr. Bashima Williams. She joins me tonight to talk a little bit about this fascinating history and the influence of Christians, even in governments that aren't friendly to Christianity, the influence that we can have by God's empowerment and courage. Tina, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
What do you make of this story?
Yeah,
How do you respond to this and your history in Iraq? How does it equate with your history?
one of the things so I was really young when we left, but one of the things that I always learned from what was happening at the time when Saddam was in control is that this general is absolutely right. He did trust the Christians because they never, they didn't betray him. They were honest. And I think that's the reason why he surrounded himself. And Saddam was actually good to the Christians. He protected the churches. Right after they took Saddam down, this is when the churches, these 1,000-year-old churches, were taken over and torn down and bombed right after he left. But for many, many years in history, he did protect the Christians and he did protect the Christian churches. So this doesn't surprise me at all. But I did know of a lot of generals were Christians that he surrounded himself with because they were, he felt like they were more trustworthy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting situation to be placed in because here they are trying to obey God and yet follow orders. But General Sada refused to obey ungodly orders and allow for and be part of the murder of these American POWs, among others. So again, it kind of shows you the influence that Christians can have without compromise, even in a pagan culture, even in a pagan land, right?
Yeah, as you heard what he said, he didn't listen. He thought he was right. He trusted Christians, but he didn't listen to them. But you're absolutely right. It was a tough situation for a lot of Christians because in our DNA, we're supposed to love people. We're supposed to pray for them. So it is a tough position. I know my dad was in the military, and that's one of the reasons why he wanted to leave, because it was too difficult to be able to associate yourself with that and continue to serve Jesus Christ. And this is one of the reasons why we immigrated here, was so that we could serve our Lord and Savior without being punished or without, having to hurt other people.
Mm-hmm.
So that made a pretty big deal. And then, of course, the American dream, everybody in the world wants this American dream, except for Americans, I think, so.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's interesting you say that. Can you elaborate on that? Everyone wants the American dream except Americans. That's a very interesting comment, and I have to agree with it. But tell me why you say that.
Well, I just see even, our children I'm Chaldean, even our Chaldean children, they think that they're, the young people think that they're entitled, or they just want a job, or they just can't take that risk and that, just to reach out for the American dreams is the rest of the world that if they have this opportunity. I guess basically Americans take everything for granted is what I see. Not all of them. There's a lot of good, hardworking, but majority of them, especially the young people, they just take it for granted, and they have this entitlement, ways about them. They think that they're entitled. They think they're entitled of a lot of things. And, I tell my son, you're entitled to nothing but roof over your head and food until you're 18. And then you got to go out and get the rest yourself.
Isn't that they want the reward without the work? Reward without work, right?
Yeah.
We were talking last week about the number of young people today in their 20s that are discouraged because of the prices of homes, even the price of a car, right? Some of them have gone to college, racked up huge debt, and they get out. They have a hard time finding a job. Many folks coming in here from India and replacing them, other foreign governments, but a lot of Indians coming in and replacing them. We dealt with that the other night. Indian managers being brought into major corporations who will only hire Indians or hire Indian contractors overseas. So I'm not undermining that the young people today have it tough, but I was trying to remind them that, hey, we had the boomer generation that a lot of these young people want to criticize right now and claim the boomers have somehow had it easy and have become wealthy by just simply owning a home over the course of 40 years. It shot up way in value. I'm like, well, first of all, that's the debasement of their currency. So while their home may be going up, everything else that's not anything they realize unless they sell the house, and then they're going to pay capital gains. But everything they buy is going up in value. So they didn't get a free pass. They weren't living in a bubble or on an island where they weren't being damaged by the price of inflation. But some of those people are being drafted into Vietnam. Some of them didn't come home. Some lost their friends. Some came home missing limbs. And we seem to have now a generational pitting against one another. And I was trying to say, look, I know things are hard, but every generation has its challenges. Every generation. Our challenges may be a little different than other generations, but every generation has its multiple challenges. As someone who's come here to America and experienced the American dream, do you believe that young people in their 20s should realize that America is still, despite its challenges, a place where people can thrive and survive financially if they're willing to be smart about it? And then you use the word risk. And I know sometimes it takes capital to take risk, but a lot of times it doesn't. I know guys that started businesses on $50. I have one friend in particular, started a business out of his apartment with $50. Turned out to be a multi-millionaire, right? But it started with $50. Do you think the American dream is still available to kids in their 20s?
There's never been a time more than today. There's so many opportunities with online, with things that you could do. I mean, I look at myself and I think, oh my God, if I was just, as I'm 63, and if I was young, if I was in my 20s, the opportunities today are so endless. It's just so amazing with the internet, with the things that you can do, with the creativity, with, it's much easier today to have the American dream. Look, people from all over the world that want to start companies come here. People from Australia, people from all over the world, they come here to search for the American dream because this is the only land that you can still have and become very successful very easily. Other places, it's a little bit harder. The taxes, the government stands in the way. But here in America, our opportunities are endless. And young people just need to take that little risk. Maybe even, skipping college. If you think you can make it, if you think you have ideas, take the risk. Maybe delay college and take a risk of your ideas. A lot of people, come up to me and they say, I have this idea. And I'm like, well, why aren't you pursuing it? And it's like, well, I'm scared or I'm this and that. No, no risk, no nothing. Mm-hmm. So I highly recommend, if you have the American dream and you want to succeed, I say go for it. If you have a great idea, it's probably a good idea because ideas that aren't taken, what do they say? The best ideas are at the graveyard. People take their ideas with them because they never pursue them.
Wow.
So I think the opportunities today are more than ever, especially with the internet, AI. There's so many things that you could do today. You could just, for me, just look at the things that a lot of, and pursue that avenue. Look at what's happening. Even take a look at people like Elon Musk. What does he come up with? There's so many millionaires that have already been made off of just the Starlink because they figured out how they can make money off of Starlink by creating products that will fit the Starlink, whether it's just a battery or a holder or a pole, just about anything. So those are the ideas that I'm talking about, that people can look at, companies or things that they're good at and come up with their ideas of what they think, would sell. And with opportunities of selling online on, Instagram, Facebook, everything online, the opportunities today are more than ever before. So
I'm glad to hear you say that because that's what I said last week. I'm like, can you imagine marketing something now? When I was starting out, you didn't have the ability to market. You'd have to either buy expensive newspaper print or radio or television. Now you can get on social media and advertise so cheaply. You can get on Nextdoor apps and advertise very, very inexpensively if you're in a service-oriented business. And I'm so glad to hear you say that. I have a friend of mine that's 92, and he's a businessman. He's an entrepreneur, and he has run and started from scratch a very successful company from scratch. And he bought one radio station. And then from there, he added another one and another one and another one. And when he bought his first radio station, he didn't really have a lot of money after he bought his station to get it up and going, got his little loan, making his loan on his radio station, getting his station going. And he didn't have a lot of cash, but he had a family. And he tells me how he would take his book, his advertising book, where he would write out a contract and a receipt for advertisers. And he said, if I used my advertising receipts like cash. He said, so we get our first home in the Mid-South where he'd bought this first station, and I needed to get some furniture. So he said, I went to the furniture store, and I brought my little advertising receipt book with me, and I asked to speak to the owner. And I said, here's who I am. I just bought this station in town, and I need to buy some furniture for my new house I just got here. And I'm willing to trade you advertising on my radio station for furniture. And the guy said, I need advertising. I need to promote people coming to my store. Sure. So they figured out a dollar figure. What's the dollar figure per spot? How many spots? Figured it up. And let's say it was $1,000, whatever it was in that day. He wrote it down a contract, had the guy sign it, and he produced his commercial, started running it. And then he said, well, what pieces of furniture do you want? And it totaled up what he went around to it, totaled that dollar figure they agreed. And they swapped it out. He said, I used my advertising book as my cash. And he went on to tell me how he ended up buying so much in his life, bartering and using that advertising receipt book to trade for goods and services. And he said to me, and he's 92 now, he loves telling these stories. He said to me, he said, I wish I was young again. He said, I see all of this technology, the apps, the iPhone, the Android, Roku. He said, all the things you're doing, Brannon, that was not even possible when I was starting out in the early 60s. And here you're doing these things with all this technology. He said, oh, to be young again and be able to utilize this technology. So it's interesting to hear of a 92-year-old guy. He's watching the technology and seeing what's happening, thinking these young people have no idea how fortunate they are to live right now because of the great opportunities this offers. But yet the young people are in their parents' home complaining, woe is me, times are hard. Well, you know what? They probably are. But times are hard for people all over the place, right? You just got to take advantage of what's available to you.
Yeah. Not everyone, a lot of people are becoming millionaires. A lot of young people are becoming millionaires. You see, I went to the Bitcoin conference and last year, and I saw a bunch of young people in their mid-20s wearing Rolex. I mean, in these, $5,000 suits. And it was just really amazing seeing that. And, just looking around thinking, you know what, these guys figured it out. They figured out what to do. But these opportunities are for every single person sitting at home, feeling sorry for themselves. They have the same opportunity. They just need to get started. Mm-hmm. You get started with whatever you need to do, whether it's a podcast or just coming up with a product and then just doing pre-sales. That's what they do a lot when you go to Facebook today and you buy a product. Guess what? It's coming out of China. It takes 2 months to get here. The reason why is because they don't make it until you order it. So they're kind of like taking pre-orders. So if you have an idea and you want to test it out, it's not a big deal to test it out. It doesn't cost much. It almost costs nothing. Just do something. Don't just sit home, feel sorry for yourself. If you're the type of person that has to have education, then get the education. But if you feel like you can create products or invent things, then do it. The opportunities, as you said, they're endless. You can get millions and millions of views these days if you can figure out how to come up with a product and how to use the social media. So absolutely, people all over the world are using it now. But here in America, I'm telling you, there's nothing better in the whole earth than the American dream. This is the reason why my dad wanted to come here. This is the reason why a lot of people around the world want to come to America. So absolutely, get off your butt and come up with something and get started, and you'd be surprised.
Yeah, you would be surprised. My daughter has a friend that they went to high school together, graduated together, and did their graduation parties together, in fact, when they graduated from high school. And this young lady was really struggling financially, trying to figure out something to do to make money for herself and family and children. And I asked my daughter recently, so how is she doing? And she said, oh, she's swamped and she's making really good money. I said, what did she finally figure out? And she really kind of tossed about for a while trying to figure something. Turns out, I guess she's now, thanks to online, making a lot of money, has something to do with needlepoint and the material you buy with the needlepoint sketched out there, and then people needlepoint. And apparently, somehow she's turned this into a very lucrative business. So there you go. It's like, really, needlepoint? And that may be I remember when that was a real fad back in the 70s, late 70s. And maybe it'll be something that'll be a fad for a while. You ride it, and if that fad rolls out, you run to the next one. You know, it's okay to own multiple businesses in your lifetime. How many businesses have you owned in your lifetime?
Quite a few. I've opened quite a few, but I have been in communication business since '84. When once I recognized that the split of the bell system, when Judge Green split the bells, I knew that communication was going to be huge, and I got into communication very early. But those are the things that you have to look at. Watch the news. This is where I get all my ideas. When something happens, when Hurricane Katrina happened, I was like, wow, communication for, satellite communication. And that's when I started my business with satellite communication. When I started in social media was when I saw the first phone. It wasn't a smartphone. In 1999, I got a phone, and it was made in China that had a camera in it. And I said, wow, this is going to be huge, social media. And I got into social media. So those are the things that you got to keep an eye on. Always know what's going on around you. Always be aware. Don't be asleep, and be one of the first people to come up with ideas when you see things happening. And you can come up with solutions, because your solutions that you come up with, somebody else is probably thinking about them. Be the first one to do it, and be the first one to go to market with those products.
Speaking of products, let's go to these great products you're offering at Worldview Talk. So school is still canceled. Today's Friday, February 6th. The kids in the Mid-South are off school from the storm that happened 2 weeks ago today. I think they'll finally go back to school Monday, but they've been off school now for 2 weeks in the Mid-South due to this extreme ice storm. Mail has not been delivered to us for 2 weeks. Amazon hasn't been to us for 2 weeks. I mean, it is bad. And we're in one of the more milder areas. Talk to me about worldviewtalk.com, and what kind of orders have you seen off this storm? Because I did say to my wife when she was showing me some of these social media people up in Nashville that had, speaking of making money, they got into being influencers and doing whatever they do to attract millions of views, and then they go and get sponsors, and next thing you know, they are doing direct sales. They don't even touch the product, and they're making so much money as influencers, whatever it's on gardening or decorating or home decor, whatever. Their viewership is so huge, companies will pay them to push their products. And some of these gals, my wife has shown me online, are making so much money. They're building multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars, even multi-million-dollar homes in Nashville. But they had no thought, I guess, of a generator. One of them the other day, my wife said, hey, you said these guys are going to buy a generator after the storm in Nashville. She showed me a video where one of the gals just installed a gigantic generator after the storm, because she's like, we're never going through that again. What are you seeing with sales after these horrific storms that have stretched through Mississippi, Tennessee, and all the way up into northern Tennessee?
Yeah, so a lot of people were, obviously they're prepared, they do have generators, but the people that didn't have generators, they were rushing to, Home Depot, Lowe's, paying top prices, and there were nothing in inventory most places. Be prepared for the next event. We know things are happening here in America. Our infrastructure, Brandon, is over 100 years old. It's going to get taken down. It's going to go down with storms, or if the bad guys want to take it down with hack, whatever, prepare yourself. Those can't be air. They can't be shipped air because they're heavy batteries, so they have to be shipped ground. Prepare. We still have a lot of them in inventory. We sold a lot just before the storm. There were a lot of people that listened to the news and ordered just before the storm and were able to get them. But if you don't have at least one generator, whether it's a small one, that it will be enough just for your, electronics, toaster, stove, or something bigger for your refrigerator, get something. And then also don't forget, you got to get a solar panel to go with it, because if the power is down for more than a couple of days, you're going to need the solar panel to be able to charge up your generator so that you could use it at home. And who knows, the next one, you could be out of electricity for a month. Look, these can go on for a very long time. They can give you what you need, a heater, AC, your refrigerator, pretty much everything that you're comfortable with on a regular basis, you can have. Prepare for the next one. Things come up all the time. It doesn't matter where you are in the U.S., whether you're in Hawaii, we saw what happened in Hawaii, or Florida for the hurricanes, Texas, or just about anywhere in the United States, something could happen. Earthquake. Be prepared. Get yourself a generator so that you can continue with life.
And a satellite phone. I carry my satellite phone with me every time I go out of town. I bring my satellite phone with me because, again, I don't just promote these things. I use these. And that's what I love about all of our companies we work with. We only promote the companies and the products we use, we agree with. We wouldn't be promoting when we didn't believe in them and use them. And I travel with this wherever we go. And I've had to use it because I got into a cell area for a weekend 2 summers ago. No cell coverage. Maybe 1% of the time that we were out of town, could I use a cell phone. The rest of the time, I'd be like, if I hadn't brought this, I would have spent that week without any cell coverage.
Yeah. And we saw what happened just a couple of weeks ago with Verizon. I guess their service went down in a lot of major cities. Look, satellite phones cannot be hacked. And the reason why this is your antenna. You carry your antenna with you wherever you go. You take this, you have to be outside, you extend this just like this, and you get a signal, you make a call. It doesn't matter where you are on Earth. You will be able to make a call. The phone doesn't care where you are. It doesn't care who you call. The phone will work from anywhere, 100% of the planet, including on the plane. That's what they use on a plane. They use iridium satellite communications.
Thank you so much for all you do and for your testimony and bringing us a little inside information on not only Iraq and your time there, but also being someone who's come to America and succeeded in the American dream. Thank you for what you're doing, offering services to our audience.
Thank you so much. It's a blessing to be here in America, I have to tell you, and I wish people would realize how blessed they are to be born here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Tina Blanco checking in, worldviewtalk.com, satellite phones, solar generators, beanies to knock down the EMF, your satellite phone, as I said, bulletproof backpacks, and more, all there at worldviewtalk.com. All right, guys, we have a reporter on the ground in Israel, but he's not just our reporter, folks. He is also a licensed tour guide for 30 years over there in the Holy Land. And we've been asking him now for several months to try to turn into us a couple of videos a week, giving us exclusive tours of sites there in Israel. Well, he has turned in some more videos, my friends. So let's go over to Israel and get a quick couple tours from Aaron Lavarco. Remember, these are all brought to you in part by our foundation, worldviewfoundation.com. We send him regular love offerings for the reporting he does, but also these wonderful educational biblical tours of the Holy Land. So if you appreciate that, Remember, your support helps us push out great free content like this for you. A workman is worthy of his hire, the Bible says. And obviously, if we ask him to go do this kind of work, we need to pay him for his time. That's the right thing to do. And I know you want to bless him as he's blessing us, giving us such great information and education from the Holy Land. So again, thank you for your support so we can keep cranking these out at least every week. We've been asking him, keep doing this. We want to crank out new videos every week. Soon, we hope to have enough videos to actually launch an Israel channel where it's nothing but hours and hours of tours by Aaron throughout Israel. So again, keep the support coming and we'll keep the videos coming. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Let's go to our tour guide of the Worldview Tube Network, Aaron Levarco in Israel.
Shalom, everyone. Aaron Levarco here for Worldview Television and Radio. I am standing just outside of Jerusalem in a city called Mevaseret Zion. Those words are actually taken from Isaiah chapter 40, which says, go up and preach good tidings to Zion. Mevaseret Zion, Zion. This area here is a place called Castel. Castel goes back 2,000 years, where the Romans actually had an outpost here guarding Jerusalem. Back in the ancient days, heights, hills were very, very important for fortification. So the Romans and their legions, they were spread out all over the area. It was in 63 BC that the Roman leader Pompey made this area, which at the time was called Judea, part of the Roman Empire. It was about a couple of centuries later that one of the Roman emperors, Hadrian, in 135 to 137, when he crushed the Jewish revolt, he changed the name of this area and called it Palestina. Fast forwarding that story, everyone, and all the history, 2,000 years, we're in the year 1947. Israel is at a pivotal moment. They have a chance to make this land into a state. The British, who ruled this area for 30 years, this is called the British Mandate period from 1917 to 1947. The British ruled here. They drove out the Ottoman Muslim Empire, and they claimed it part of their empire, but they left. So, in 1948, David Ben-Gurion declares this land Israel. This was the third time that the Jewish people have sovereign territory. The first time was under King David, 1000 BC. The second time was the 2nd century BC under a group of people called the Hasmoneans or the Maccabees. And the third time was 1948. But when David Ben-Gurion declared that area as independent and called it Israel, all of the remaining or surrounding Muslim nations declared war. And so it became known as the War of Independence. Jerusalem was severely under attack. And the road that I'm in, which is road number 1, the main road from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv, was cut off. The Arabs had this high place called Castel. In fact, you can see in the distance a hill right up there, and that was where they would guard the whole area from. So going back even to ancient days, when you had height advantage, it was very, very important. So usually there would be 2 or 3 key things that you would look for when you settled in a place. One, of course, would be water. Number 2 is land. Good land to cultivate, to grow vegetation, to live by. Number 3, you would look for routes, trade routes, where you could sell and buy. And number 4 was security. And of course, the hills and the heights were crucial. So getting hold of the hill up here, now this place I mentioned earlier is called Castell. It's actually taken from the word castle or fortress, and it was named that Castell in the 12th century by a group of people called the Crusaders. That's right, the Catholic Crusaders, who ruled in this area for 200 years in the 11th, 12th, and 13th centuries. They had many fortresses and castles. They had what were called khans, K-H-A-N-S. They're like inns, hospitality places. That was one of the orders of the Crusaders, the Hospitallers. Then they had the Templars. They looked after the Temple Mount up in Jerusalem. In fact, you can see Jerusalem in the distance there. That is Jerusalem. That's how close or how far we are from Jerusalem. And as I said, we're on that main route. And the Jewish people in Tel Aviv, which is in the north, that direction, they tried to get supplies to the Jewish people up in Jerusalem, which is toward the south. But the Arab people, the Muslim enemies, they took this stronghold and they ambushed many jeeps and trucks. Many Jewish fighters died and were injured. It was a tough battle to break through. The final breakthrough came when a Jewish man who actually served in the United States Army, a man called Mickey Marcus, he heard about the War of Independence and he wanted to come and fight for his brothers and sisters here. So he came and he was able to find an inner road through the forest. And that road has famously now called, or back then was called, the Burma Road, reminding us about a pass or a passage from India to Bombay, the Bombay Road. And they were able, the Jewish people from Tel Aviv, to get the supplies through that Bombay Road, or not the Bombay Road, the Burma Road. And they were able to break through the siege. Finally, they were able to come up here to Castell. Lots of bloodshed and fighting. And they were able to take over this stronghold, fortress, this Castell, castle. A great victory through determination, perseverance. By the way, that 1948 War of Independence story with Mickey Marcus has been made into a Hollywood movie, and it's called Cast a Giant Shadow, and it has 4 big actors: John Wayne, Frank Sinatra, Yul Brynner, and Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas, he plays Mickey Marcus. I believe it was about the 1950s or 60s that movie was made, Cast a Giant Shadow. And it's here where they were able to break through the siege. the ambushes and take this fortress called Castell. Here we are up here at the lookout. They even have bunkers under the ground here. You can see little passageways. There's some more over here. Better view as we look down. This is where the soldiers would barricade themselves. There were many snipers at the time, very dangerous. A little bit of rain today. As we make our way up to the top here of Castell, just as it's starting to pour down. There's Jerusalem in the background. There is the city of the great king. There is Mevaseret Zion. And here is the Israeli flag. And the high fortress. And you've even got a little model here to show the topography and the landscape. They've got the story here in English and in Hebrew, and they called it Operation Nachshon, which means the daring operation, because they knew if they captured this strong high tower of Castell, they would be able to get the supplies in to Jerusalem, to the Jewish fighters up there. And here we have a model of some of the trucks and equipment vehicles carrying all of the supplies and the armaments that were needed in that fight. So this is just a story we have of one of many, many battles that have been fought, blood that has been spilled for the taking of this land. And until today, 2026, we're still fighting. And it reminds me in the book of Samuel, the words of King David, how the mighty have fallen. And we remember those soldiers, some of them who walked among those pits and bunkers down there, some whose children and grandchildren still fight until today. Our brave soldiers, we salute them, and we thank Almighty God for bringing us back to the land, for sustaining us until this day.
All right, guys, that's our broadcast. Hope you have a great weekend. Hey, do you appreciate those tours? Again, we need your support to keep them going. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Because again, we send regular love offerings to Aaron for those tours. We bless him as he blesses us. So you be a blessing to us, we'll be a blessing to him, and all of us together, working together, keep great content like this coming for education and edification, right? Worldviewfoundation.com. Roll the music, guys. Let's call it a night. Hey, don't forget, you can also get your free stack of business cards. Free stack of business cards. Just go to worldviewstore.com. You guys can roll the music if you want. Go to worldviewstore.com. Get your free pack of business cards. We'll send you a pack of 20 of these absolutely free of charge. And you can pass these out to your waiter, waitress, maybe you're going to a doctor's appointment, friends at church. Who knows where you're going? Picking up dog food at your local dog store. I don't know where you go, but when you do, take a pack of these along, pass it around, spread the word about worldviewtube.com. Have a great weekend. Till next time, I'm Brannon Howse. May God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon Howse.
And welcome. Let's take your Bible questions, your Bible prophecy questions. They can be Bible questions. They can be Bible prophecy questions. Let's open up the phone lines. But first, I want you to think about your questions. So we have some good questions with Dr. Andy Woods. And while you're thinking and getting ready to call in, let's go to Dr. Woods and let's be joined by Annie Cyrus as well. Because you know we have talks going on between Iran and Oman, Iran and the U.S. in Oman. Annie told us yesterday what was going to happen. And she's back to say, I told you so. Annie and Dr. Woods, guys, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Having me, Brannon.
Great to be here.
Great to have both of you here. All right, Annie, go right ahead. We won't keep you very long, but tell us what's the latest out of Oman.
The latest is exactly what I figured it would be yesterday. They met. The combination of people in the room was pretty curious, I'll say that. We had the foreign minister of Oman. We had the foreign minister of Iran with one other person of his department. And then we had Witkoff and about four other people. One of them, one of the heads of, I think we call it sitcom.
Yep.
Yes, in full military uniform. I am not defending what the Iranian government said, but they did say this is not negotiation when you show up with guns and aircrafts over our head. Anyhow, the meeting went forward. Nobody knows, of course, who said what. And Witkoff is coming back to bring their message, and Araghchi going to Iran, and they're going to schedule the next meeting. So I guess it went good enough for them to meet again. But one curious thing is Witkoff coming to America, but Araghchi, which is foreign minister of Iran, he didn't head back to Iran. He headed to Qatar from Oman.
Wow.
I think that's pretty curious to just keep an eye on.
So you're saying one of the leaders of Iran went to Qatar instead of back to Iran?
Yes, the foreign minister who was in the room talking to Witkoff, in Oman, headed to Qatar instead of Tehran.
Isn't that something? Now, I want to play real quick for you guys a video and an audio from then U.S. Senator from Florida, Marco Rubio, back in 2015. I think he's making reference to what would have been the money the Obama administration was giving to Iran, which, of course, has helped them to build up their nuclear program. Listen to this, because he actually said he wanted to give this statement on the floor of the Senate as a historical marker to say, I can tell you what is going to happen, guys, what this administration's doing, giving them this money, allowing them to go down this road. I can tell you what's going to happen. Wow. Listen to what he said in 2015, then U.S. Senator from Florida, Marco Rubio, now Secretary of State. Here we go.
Mr. President, I'll be brief. I know the senator from Tennessee would like to close on this matter. I think everything that needs to be said about the details of this deal have already been said. I do want to be recorded for history's purposes before I know what is going to happen in regards to this if it goes through. Iran will immediately use the money that it's receiving in sanctions relief to begin to build up its conventional capabilities. It will establish the most dominant military power in the region outside of the United States, and it will raise the price of us operating in the region. They're going to build anti-access capabilities, rockets capable of destroying our aircraft carriers and ships, continue to build these swift boats that are able to come on us, these fast boats that are able to swarm our naval assets. And they'll make it harder and harder for U.S. troops to be in the region. They'll also work with other terrorist groups in the region to target American servicemen and women. And they may or may not deny that they're involved, but they will target us and raise the price of our presence in the Middle East until they hope to completely pull us out of that region. They'll also continue to build long-range missiles, missiles capable of reaching the United States. Those are not affected by this deal, and they'll continue to build them as they've been doing. And then at some point in the near future, when the time is right, they will build a nuclear weapon. And they will do so because at that point they will know that they have become immune, that we will no longer be able to strike their nuclear program because the price of doing so will be too high. This is not just a work of imagination. It exists in the world today. It's called North Korea, where a lunatic possesses dozens of nuclear weapons and a long-range rocket that can already reach the United States. And we cannot do anything about it. An attack on North Korea today would result in an attack on Tokyo, or Seoul, or Guam, or Hawaii, or California. And so the world must now live with a lunatic in possession of nuclear weapons. And this is the goal Iran has as well, to reach a point where they become immune to any sort of credible military threat because the price of a military strike would be too high. And then they become an established nuclear weapons power. And never in the history of the world has such a regime ever possessed weapons so capable of destruction. Iran is led by a supreme leader who is a radical Shia cleric with an apocalyptic vision of the future. He is not a traditional geopolitical actor who makes decisions on the basis of borders or simply history or because of ambitions. He has an religious apocalyptic vision of the future, one that calls for triggering a conflict between the non-Muslim world and the Muslim world, one that he feels especially obligated to trigger. And he's going to possess nuclear weapons. This is the world that we are on the verge of leaving our children to inherit. And perhaps we ourselves will have to share in it. And so I want to be recorded for history's purposes, if nothing else, to say that those of us who opposed this deal understood where it would lead. And we are making a terrible mistake. And I fear that the passage of this deal will make it even harder for us to prevent it. And I hope that there is still time to change our minds. But here's the good news. Iran may have a supreme leader, but America does not. In this nation, we have a republic. And soon we will have new leaders, perhaps in this chamber, but also in the executive branch. And I pray that on their first day in office, they will reverse this deal and reimpose the sanctions and back them up with a credible threat of military force, or history will condemn us for not doing what needed to be done at this critical moment in the world's history.
Regardless of what you think about Marco Rubio, he gets a lot of stuff right. He kind of has been labeled as a neocon, and he has been in some areas, but then in other areas, he's just been flat out common sense. And the radio audience couldn't see that unless they're watching video. So radio, you're not going to see video, obviously. Newsflash. So let me just tell everybody what was so impressive about that. Marco Rubio wasn't reading that. I was deliberately watching him. He wasn't reading that. That was a presentation that he was just delivering from his own knowledge. There's talk of the ticket for 2028 being Vance and Rubio. I'm not a fan of Vance at all. Rubio, again, it just depends on what we're talking about. But there's no way that Rubio should be the VP. And again, I'm not endorsing candidates, but his knowledge base is far better than Vance. And Vance, in his relationship with Tucker Carlson, and I guess got Tucker Carlson's kid working for him, that's not a positive sign for me at all. Not to mention Thiel and Pierre Thiel and all these guys around Vance. But that was pretty impressive in 2015, and that he was doing it without reading it. What are your thoughts on what you just heard, Annie?
Let me be the person I always am. That was very impressive. And that was 2015. And what was his position? Like, was he Congress?
He was in the U.S. Senate. He was in the U.S. Senate.
What is his position today in the United States of America?
Well, he's probably trying to negotiate with these people.
No. I mean, like his position.
He is the Secretary of State. He's now the Secretary of State. There you go.
So if in 2015 he stands there without reading off of anything, meaning his own mind and mental knowledge as Iran has a supreme leader with a religious, destructive future, Why does he stand next to the good president of the United States of America when he brags about saving the life of that very same supreme leader? Because I can tell you, 2015 and today had the same supreme leader in Iran. Part of me is I'm not so impressed by him. I'm actually opposite. That just shows that he also had a price. The man who stood there against Obama cheered Trump when he saved the life. This wasn't a deal. This wasn't money that was going to build the strongest military for Iran in the region. This was the very supreme leader. Marco Rubio clearly is aware of his stand and his ideology. But 10 years later, literally 10 years later, because Trump saved Khamenei's life in 2025, 10 years later, his point of view apparently has changed. So forgive me as I don't trust neither Marco Rubio or J.D. Vance for 28 because, well, Rubio, I'm glad he said that for his historic purposes. Now we know that he doesn't stand by his own understanding and knowledge either.
And I wonder what he would do or say if he weren't serving at the pleasure of the president. Annie?
He would probably, well, no. If he was not serving the pleasure of the president, depending on what he was serving, he would still cheer this because people like Marco Rubio and many other in our government, they don't stand by actions. They stand by what's in front of your name. Is it a D or an R? He was going pretty hard on Obama for the fact that Obama was a Democrat president.
And now we have Iran seizing oil tankers and threatening massacre in the Strait of Hormuz just hours before the U.S. talks. And that was yesterday.
And we still want, I want to mention this. If you look, just Google the Friday U.S.-Iran talks, you have majority of major outlets in America yesterday claiming that it was canceled. And I kept saying, no, it isn't canceled. It wasn't clearly canceled. So they're also inserting a lot of misinformation where Americans actually are not even believing this talk took place this morning. Well, very early morning, last night, almost our local time.
Right. What are your thoughts?
The meeting took place. I'm sorry.
What are your thoughts, Dr. Woods?
Well, I mean, my general thoughts, I have a grid that I run these things through. It's largely Ezekiel 38 and 39, which is clear as day. Persia is going to be an anti-Israel, and I think by extension, an anti-Western power in the last days, Persia being Iran. So in order for that prophecy to come to fruition, Iran has to be elevated into kind of a regional power status, and it has to be hostile towards the West, and it has to be hostile towards Israel. And to me, every single headline that we're discussing, fits into that rubric and it fits into that category. And I think Rubio, we can say whatever we like or dislike about the guy, but I believe that he is an actual born-again Christian, and I think he understands Bible prophecy. And I also believe that he well understood in 2015, based on his understanding of prophecy, what the Iranians would do with all of that, money that Obama sent their direction. I mean, these are people that don't have our best at heart. These are people that are bent on our destruction and the destruction of Israel. And so that's why Iran has moved in the trajectory that it's moved in. I mean, it's all lining up with God's word. And I'm not saying we shouldn't speak up and fight as Annie is doing for the freedom and the liberation of the Persian people, but God's word says what it says, and these headlines all fit the theme. And they're really not surprising.
We'll be right back with more, including the opening ceremonies of the Olympics have started.
Consumers often ask, what should I expect when I take the Bella Grace elixir? And the answer's varied. It really depends on what your health and wellness needs are. I would consider this as your foundational core product for a whole range of health and wellness issues. Let me give you a few examples. If you're a little bit older and you have some joint health issues, some problems with mobility and discomfort, the elixir is going to be your best friend. If you have some skin health issues, wrinkles, hydration, aging, all of those elements are going to be benefited from the elixir, including age spots. Now, if you're in a younger demographic, maybe visual health is where you need some assistance. Eye fatigue, dry eyes, all of those are going to be benefited by the elixir. It's a core product because it benefits so many.
Control room, the opening ceremony of the Olympics, just to see if they do anything crazy again. They seem to have to always send some kind of subliminal message or do some weird opening ceremony, right? We have to go through all that we've seen over the years. So I asked the guys to monitor that. Let me know if we see anything. So far, so good. So far, so good. It would be nice to have an Olympics where we can just watch some good downhill skiing, some pair skating, some toboggan, and just have some good athletic competitions without a lot of political message. By the way, I don't watch Fox News, but I did have it on the last couple days just to see what they were covering related to this very sad story out of Arizona. This, what's her name, Savannah Guthrie's mom, very 84-year-old lady, seems as though she was taken from her home. There's supposedly a ransom note, and obviously very troubling, and we should pray for her safe return to her family. Absolutely. But what I find so interesting is Fox News covering it wall to wall, almost wall to wall. And I know it's a story because it's a national figure, but there are a lot of things that go on in America that are just as horrific that do not get this coverage. A lot of families dealing with a lot of tragedies that don't get this kind of coverage, but boy, it must really be doing the ratings well because they just are covering it nonstop. Every time I walk into the room or walk through the room, it's on. It's like they're not talking about anything else, which tells me Fox News is definitely got a demographic of much, much, much older people. But also what I find interesting is that we live in a culture, sadly, that is, and of course the country's split, but we have states that are so pro-abortion, have such a low view of the sanctity of life. There's the push for active euthanasia, doctor-assisted suicide, end-of-life care, MAID, and allowing for medically assisted dignity in dying, all these other acronyms they come up with to try to wrap murder in something benign. And I find it interesting that the country, and I'm not saying the country's wrong to be concerned, we should, but I find it so interesting that so many Americans are concerned about an 84-year-old lady that's been kidnapped and missing, and yet how would they feel about a story that someone just read to me of a baby that was, I guess it was an attempted abortion, and the child survived. And the report I read was that the little boy was laid aside